What's going on, Bulls Nation? Welcome in to CHGO Bulls Pregame, presented to you by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download their app and be sure to use promo code CHGO when you sign up. I'm Peck. You can follow me on Twitter at Bulls_Peck. My guy, Will the Goat Gottlieb. Will_Gottlieb on Twitter. Make sure you're following him for all of his Bulls insider info. Big Dave will be joining us remote for postgame, but we're giving him pregame off because that man, he can do whatever he wants.
He deserves it.
He can do whatever he wants. Our pal and producer Joey rocking with us per usual. We got a nice early 6 p.m. tip-off tonight. Love it.
Love to love it.
Love it. Sixers on deck. No Joel Embiid, which, you know, sort of two-sided coin. A bummer because the Bulls don't have an opportunity to beat their winless streak against Joel Embiid in his entire NBA career. That's still a real stat. But
still a real stat.
Maybe a better opportunity for the Bulls to get another win here after a big win over the Nets on Wednesday night. We will take a look at this James Harden-led Sixers team for tonight's matchup later on in pregame. Wanted to start, though, with the initial All-Star ballot returns that dropped yesterday, gentlemen. As you might expect, DeMar DeRozan is among those Eastern Conference guards getting a lot of votes. He is currently 6th among Eastern Conference guards in voting. Zach LaVine, probably not to many people's surprise, not in the top 10 for Eastern Conference guards in this initial return of All-Star votes, Will.
Maybe a little surprising, but he's been, like, pretty good lately. I mean, he kind of laid a bit of an egg in the second half, especially of that Nets game. But, like, month of December, the stats are looking good. Mm-hmm. He's throwing down alley-oops. Mm-hmm. He's also got, like, the name brand. I mean, a lot of this is just that it's a popularity contest. You see some of the names here. Obviously, a lot of them deserving, but...
in the show notes, Pac put Zach LaVine not top 10, Nikola Vucevic not top 10. I said, I don't know if that even needs to be written down. I don't know who's going to be surprised by that one.
Look, the Bulls have 3 All-Stars. They actually have 5 All-Stars if you include Dragic and Drummond, who are both All-Stars.
At one point in time,
but
have
then
made an All-Star team.
you have to put. I mean, Zach was an All-Star last year, but if he doesn't make it this year,
the Zach one is But I think
Vooch is not an All-Star.
I mean, there's no chance. He's not even in the discussion. But I'm sorry, not to throw strays at Vooch. It's the facts.
I'm really making a comment about how every time people talk about the Bulls, it's that they've brought these 3 All-Stars together, and it's looking like they're maybe going to have one this year, which is pretty deserving considering their record is 17-21.
Yeah, and look, we do know that these are fan voting returns, right? So sometimes you see names on there that are like, okay, is that person really an All-Star?
Is Andrew Wiggins really starting the All-Star?
Right, exactly. I know it's one that can be triggering for some Bulls fans who are like ride or die Derrick Rose people. Derrick Rose is in the top 10 among Eastern Conference guards for All-Star voting. And it's largely because that dude has been wildly popular among NBA fans, not just here in Chicago, but all over the world. People are still obsessed with Derrick Rose, and for justified reasons. He's not an All-Star.
His shoe is literally right there.
35 minutes.
His shoe is on
oh, you're right. That is an Addy Zero right there. There you go. But, I mean, yeah, he was like, Tibbs took him out of the rotation, and he's Tibbs' guy. It's just one example of All-Star voting from fans being a little skewed towards just like it's a popularity contest.
It is. But you also see some of these names that are, I think, deserving. Like, maybe we can talk about them more tomorrow night, but Lauri Markkanen.
Say it.
Maybe Austin Reeves, not so much, but Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah, that's just Lakers fans being,
maybe
agents of chaos.
Lauri Markkanen.
I mean, Markkanen being 7th among Western Conference front court players seems legitimate. That's, and it's not like Jazz fans are a particularly loud, rambunctious crew of people who will vote silly things to be All-Stars. No, Markkanen, and I just saw this in an exchange that our guy Mark K was having on Twitter right before we came on for pregame. Among players in the NBA averaging 20-plus points per game this season, he is 3rd behind only the Joker and Kevin Durant when it comes to true shooting percentage.
Wow.
20-plus points per game, and he has a true shooting percentage of 69.9. That's All-Star stuff.
Incredible.
Yeah.
We'll spend more time on him.
We can talk about it a little bit tomorrow, because I think some Bulls fans are having a little bit of broken heartstrings recently watching Lowry absolutely explode in Utah. Good for him. Happy for him. but it's just the most recent example of Bulls fans saying, why can't this organization develop the young talent that they draft?
I just Googled the most ridiculous all-star voting results of the last couple of years. 2020, Alex Caruso received 1.3 million votes, fourth most among Western Conference guards.
Yeah.
2020, Taco Fall, sixth place in the Eastern Conference frontcourt voting. Like, that's insane.
Zaza almost started a couple years
Zaza
ago.
in 2016 and 17. He's on the list.
It is wild. And I remember going on an angry rant about Caruso getting that many All-Star votes before he became
You definitely hated
my
Caruso
precious
when he
boy.
was a Laker.
Of course I did, because he had a Lakers jersey on, and I hate everything Lakers. But yeah, I mean, ridiculous. Bulls fans aren't voting Alex Caruso to be on the All-Star team.
But I will say, picking the starters, I know it's heavily skewed towards fans and the fan vote for the starters, but like, there's going to be like 6 or 7 guys that are legitimately in the conversation that you're going to have to leave out, maybe Ja Morant or like Pascal Siakam or Jason Tatum or something like that. I mean,
Right.
There's a lot of talent in both conferences right now.
Tons. And like, there will be people left out. As of right now, I mean, unless he makes some meteoric jump between these early returns and then the next batch of votes that come in, if DeMar gets the All-Star team this year, it won't be as a starter like last season when he was just playing lights out and winning all those close games with big shots late. It'll be as a reserve selection, which still could happen. DeMar is a very well-liked and respected player, not only by his peers and other players in the league, but by coaches in the league. Like, I think if he keeps up what he's doing between now and the final reserve decisions being made, he could very well still make an All-Star team this year.
Yeah, you think maybe one of those last-second shots going in probably helps the case, but, I mean, he's putting up very similar numbers. I think also probably the Bulls' record doesn't help him too much, but you're right. I mean,
he's
the coaches,
somewhat negatively affected by the positioning, like how they group his position.
Yeah,
like
didn't
if
they
he was
play him
considered in the front court,
right,
he would be more likely to get voted in.
I believe last year he was backcourt, and
right.
there was a chance that both he and Zach were going to start. I mean, Zach last year at this point was like playing out of his mind.
The Eastern Conference guards are like, or just the guards because it's not by but yeah, are loaded. So he would be better off if he was listed in the front court.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of
he's basically the power forward. I mean,
silly and seems arbitrary as far as where they put these players, guards or front court player. Like Jimmy Butler is a front court player. It's like, okay, well, a lot of people look at Jimmy as a wing, small forward, that kind of player, but like, it's kind of also what DeMar is.
They should just do best 5 players, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, especially
same
these
as
days
NBA.
when it's like, okay, how do you choose between Embiid and Giannis if you only want to have like one center on your All-Star team? How do you choose between, I mean, like
Embiid and Jokic for first team
Embiid and Jokic for first team All-NBA? Exactly. It's kind of silly. Anyway, so we'll see when the next batch of votes come in, if DeMar rises or falls, if Zach keeps playing well, if maybe his name pops up in there. You can always cast your votes on Twitter, social media, whatever your preferred social media app. Cast your votes for our Bulls players, because we want to have some representation. Because, it's going to be a party in Utah for All-Star Weekend. It's where the best parties happen.
I'm sure they'll find a way. I'm sure they'll find a way.
All right, we got to take a quick break here. When we come back, we will get a look at tonight's injury report for the Bulls and the Sixers, and then take a look at this matchup the Bulls have on deck tonight. Difficult to see a win tonight, even without the services of Embiid for the Sixers. Tonight's episode of Pregame brought to you guys by our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official betting partner of the NBA, our official betting partner at CHGO. It's a new year, but the same nonstop NBA action at DraftKings. And if you sign up for a new account with DraftKings Sportsbook right now, you can place any $5 NBA bet on a money line and get $200 in free bets instantly if your team wins. $200. Bumped it back up from $150 to $200 as a Happy New Year present to all of you DraftKings Sportsbook users out there. Just combine multiple bets from the same matchup, like who will win, total points scored, and more, to boost your odds and get bigger payouts with those DraftKings same-game parlays. So download their app right now, and don't forget that promo code CHGO when you do, so that you can capitalize on an amazing offer for a $5 NBA moneyline bet to win $200 in free bets. All right, so I was just sifting my Twitter timeline because questionable was the tag for Alex Caruso yesterday after he left that Wednesday night game early with what looked like a rolled ankle, a sprained ankle. They called him a game-time decision as recently as a couple hours ago, late this afternoon. Now in my Twitter feed, I am seeing that he has been ruled out. I haven't seen it from a Bulls PR source, but I'm seeing it from a lot of NBA fantasy accounts and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's on the NBA injury report at this point from the most recent update. And yeah, I saw it happen in the last game. It was just right in my line of sight from where I was sitting. And he basically, I can't remember what happened on the play before, but he was just coming back on defense and stepped on somebody's ankle. And it's just of all the ways that guy could get himself injured, diving into the stands or, taking a screen or jamming a shoulder or whatever it is, just walking back on defense. Oh, it's a tough pill to swallow.
You've talked about it, Will, and you had a great video that you put up on your Twitter in one of their more recent games of Alex Caruso playing legitimate first team all defense caliber defense, but it is that extra level of crazy energy that he plays with and the complete disregard for his own body flying around a court, making those plays, those big momentum swinging plays, that he puts himself at risk to have these little, bang up injuries here and there that cause him to miss some games. It's unfortunate, but it's a result of the way he plays. And
I really identify it because pretty much any time I try to play basketball, I sprain my ankle. So I feel for you, AC.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, for the most part, he has managed to stay fairly healthy this season.
The last few games, he's been
dinged
up a bit.
He's been dinged up here and there. He had a 3-game absence from December 23rd through December 28th, right around Christmas. He had a 1-game absence back earlier in December, but he's played 34 games so far this season of 38. You hope that this ankle isn't too bad, because sometimes with those ankle injuries, whether if it's a high ankle sprain versus a lower ankle sprain, those can linger, and if you don't give them the proper time to heal, they get worse.
And I think that's kind of where the Bulls should be right now. Is they're kind of towing this line of look, our record is 17-21. We're not lonely out of it yet here, but we need to start making up some wins and fast. But now you've got Javonte out. Obviously Lonzo, we got another update today, which was not much of an update, but he continues to progress extremely slowly. Just waiting for these guys to get healthy. You want them to be ready to go for the stretch run, but will there be a stretch run? Right. Yeah. That is still a big giant question mark. We don't know. The Bulls will also once again be without the services of 5 Javonte Greens tonight. He is still out with that same knee soreness in his right knee that's been giving him some trouble as we've moved through this season. And then on the Sixers side, of course, we learned yesterday that the Sixers were deciding to hold Embiid out for a second consecutive game with what they are calling foot soreness. So good news for the Bulls there. Do not have to deal with that guy who was December's NBA Player of the Month for the Eastern Conference. He has been just putting up stupid stat lines every night. Unbelievably good. And we were just, talking about it with regards to the All-Star game. There's just so much. It's not just so much All-Star talent, but top-end legitimate MVP case talent. Right. And Embiid is definitely, he's got to be towards the top of that list. Yeah. Jay in the comments saying, I hope that Billy plays a bigger lineup today. We need to dominate the boards, especially with Embiid out. We'll see. And unfortunately, though, on that point, no Tony Bradley tonight. He's out with a non-COVID illness. So really unfortunate. Really was going to rely on Tony to play big minutes tonight. The Sixers did go small against the Pacers on Wednesday as far as their starting lineup goes, but Montrezl Harrell, who's coming off their bench, who has only been averaging about 12, 13 minutes a game so far this season, played 28. So there is maybe some size that they will go to for certain parts of tonight's game. We'll see what Billy does to maybe adjust to the fact that the Sixers will be without Joel Embiid. Before we take a look at what Harden and some of the 5-man lineups without
Embiid are doing this season. I wanted to touch on some stuff from after the Wednesday night game with regard to our guy Patrick Williams, who had his first 20-plus point output of the season because his teammate said something pretty funny and also, like, good for you, motivating. And I thought also his coach, Billy Donovan, had some interesting thoughts, Will. But, like, let's start with this. How did this go down? Because the way it was phrased in your column, shout out, read it, allchgo.com, after the Wednesday night game, you said that DeMar, like, called from across the locker room when somebody was talking to Pat about taking open shots. And Joey, do we have that specific quote from DeMar, Pat's teammate? If he doesn't shoot it, he's going to get cussed the F out. What was like the tenor of that interaction?
Well, it was actually my question. I was kind of asking him a little bit more about, like, we've talked about it. I've been noticing that the Bulls seem to be not like running plays for Patrick to, like, give him the ball and let him go operate. I think we have seen a little bit of that, but that's not, Billy said that's like not something he really subscribes to, which I think is a fair point. But he has been putting Patrick, I think, in more positions within the flow of their offense to make reads.
Yeah.
And if that read is to put the ball on the floor and pull it for a jumper or go all the way to the basket, that's like sort of the signal for him to do that. And so I was asking him, you know, does he feel that within the course of the game that they're putting more of an emphasis on that for him? And, you know, the follow-up was like, if you've got the first 2 or 3 shots of the game, which he has for the last few games, when you're seeing that ball go in, does that sort of encourage and motivate you to not go completely shotless the rest of the half?
Right.
And DeMar kind of chimed in so Patrick's kind of like on this side, and then there's like a corner here, and DeMar's on the end of the corner, and he kind of called over like, yeah, because if he doesn't, he's going to get cussed the fuck out.
Right. Well, I mean, that's my reaction when I see Pat pass up an open three, is I yell at him, but it's me yelling at the TV, yelling at him. But, I mean, I think DeMar is right to say that and to call that out in the locker room around all of their teamguy Danny Fish.
It was very much in jest. Like, it was not, he was not like calling him out.
Not like actually threatening in any way. Yeah. But our guy Daddy Fish in the comments saying, I thought DeMar spoke for all of us, because, like, that's how I feel. Like, we took that tweet, or I'm sorry, we took that quote and put it up on our CHGO Bulls Twitter account, and it exploded. People were engaging with it, quote tweeting it, say, yes, more of this. That's how I feel, because I think Bulls fans want to see Pat take those looks when they are given to him, and it's frustrating when he doesn't. And I'm sure for a teammate like DeMar, who is a vet, a mentor to Pat, a guy who's tried to put him under his wing and help him have confidence in himself to take open shots, it's like, dude, I'm going to give you a little bit of a hard time here. It's kind of a tough love, but it's also the right advice. Like, dude, you got to shoot. The spacing issues that this team has, we can't afford to have Pat passing up good looks.
It's that, and it's also like, I've been calling for it. I know a lot of other people have. Like, we need to see what Patrick can do, and it doesn't necessarily have to just be a catch-and-shoot three. And I think that's why I've been really excited and encouraged by the fact that you're starting to see Patrick involved in more screening actions, getting the ball and going downhill, is like, what can this guy do with the basketball? Because right now, a lot of the time, he's just standing in the corner. And I think from a player development standpoint, we've seen what's happened with Lowry. We've seen what's happened with Wendell. You can't just let these guys, get pigeonholed into standing in the corner. That's not going to help them develop into high-level basketball players. And that's the point that we're at with Patrick now, of like, we need to see what this guy can do. And it's not just for Patrick, even though I think that's probably the biggest part of it. It's when the defense collapses on DeMar because there's no spacing. And, we've talked about the predictability of the offense when DeMar's going to be the one that gets the ball in late game situations.
Right.
He's going to be the one that shoots it. Somebody else has to be able to do something with the ball when they catch it, whether that's attack of the basket or be ready to shoot threes. I want to see Patrick continue to do that, and it seems like his teammates do too.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just saying in the comments, I would rather criticize Pat making mistakes rather than criticizing not attempting to make mistakes. Yeah. Nobody wants Pat to be afraid to fail and then therefore shy away from seizing opportunities. And you mentioned some of the things that Billy was saying about whether or not this team is actually trying to run plays for Pat offensively. And he said something that I thought was interesting. Joey, do we have that one quote from Billy that we could throw up there saying about Pat? It's not so much to say, hey, listen, Patrick, this is your play. We're running this play for you. When you catch it, just shoot it. I don't subscribe to that. But you can put him in some actions where he's got to make decisions and be aggressive. And he, of late, has been in some of those situations. What do you think about that kind of thought from Billy when talking about Pat's role in the offense, Will?
I've been screaming this from the media row since the beginning of the season, since training camp. Like, they need to put him in situations where he can make reads. I don't care if it's like Billy's saying, we're not going to just give you the ball to give you the ball. We're not going to say, all right, here's your 5 pick and rolls per game. I get it. That's fine. Like, that's kind of what Mark and I had talked about in sort of our preseason expectation podcast and things like that. I understand why Billy doesn't want to do that, and I think that's fair. I mean, we talked about it with predictability.
Right.
But he does need to be involved in the offense, and I think that's a great way to do it. We've seen him used as a screener. We're starting to see him now run a little pick and roll. I just think he needs to have the ball in his hands and do some more creation because he can stand in the corner. I think he's developed his jumper. He's shooting over 40%. That's great. But I don't think anybody would be like super thrilled if this was the final evolution of Patrick Williams.
Right. The other thing that Billy mentioned that I thought was interesting was sort of like he pointed out that some of their opponents, as far as like a game plan, are hiding their weaker defenders on Pat, which, like, you know, if I'm Pat, you know,
that's a sign
MJ
of
meme,
disrespect.
I take that, and I took that personally, you know, like,
absolutely,
you have to. And so, you know, Billy mentioning that to say, hey, try to get him involved in some of these actions to make the weaker defenders that, of your opponent guard. Like, don't just let them get away with hiding a defender on Pat if Pat is capable of exposing their weakest defender. If that person is getting put on Pat to try to minimize their negative impact on the defensive end of the floor, like, make them pay for it.
And that's not just Patrick. Like, that's whoever.
Right.
If their weakest defender is being hidden on you, you better go put that defender in a position where they're going to have to defend, like, make them guard.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, Patrick, especially with the tools that he has, I mean, those are the opportunities, right? It's not like he's getting locked up by Giannis out there. He's got, like, you know, the weakest link on him. Like, he needs to take advantage in those situations. And I think sometimes, this is just my speculation, but it feels like watching him, he doesn't know when he's allowed to do that or if there's a space for him to do that. And I think understanding, hey, I've got the weakest defender on me. They're hiding their worst guy on me. I'm going to catch the ball and take a hard jab step and go to the basket and like try to put this guy in a situation where he's got a defender or where the defense has to collapse and now I can make the next pass.
Right. All right, so shifting gears and looking at this Sixers team, and particularly James Harden, because we don't have to worry about Embiid tonight. Harden's numbers this season, and it is on a smaller sample size because he did have that 14-game absence with that foot tendon injury. Basically missed all of November and the beginning of December. So he's only played 22 on the season, but his averages are kind of like right around his career averages. Obviously, he's not that, like, you know, leading the league in scoring guy he was towards the end of his Houston years where he was the NBA scoring champion in 3 consecutive seasons. The scoring's come down. He's averaging 22.3 a game, but the shooting splits are pretty identical. You know, this season he's shooting 43 from the field, 36 from the three-point line, 87 from the free throw line, compared to his career numbers, 44, 36, 86. So, like, basically the shooting from Harden is the same. He is, however, you know, kind of like low-key because he's only played 22 games, the NBA's assist leader at 10.8 per game. You know, Halliburton also a 10-plus assist guy, but Harden, that distributor and getting a lot of that, finding open looks for teammates. And so tonight, especially with no Embiid, it'll be just interesting to see who Harden tries to get going first, Will. Does he try to get himself going first? Or does he try to, you know, get some touches to Maxey, to Tobias Harris? What do you think Harden's going to be? What do you think his game plan is tonight?
Well, I think one of the things that the Sixers do well is just provide their guys with as much space around them as possible. We kind of know about their lack of up and down athleticism. I mean, they're playing guys like Tobias Harris and George Niang heavy minutes, and that's not really conducive to a bunch of transition play. Harden, as we know, has also been a walk it up the floor, run spread pick and roll kind of point guard for his entire career. I mean, I think he's going to be the primary offense, look to kick it out to some of those shooters that we just mentioned. Maxey also is really the one guy who can get up and down and has that dynamic athleticism, so he'll be involved as well. But I think, typically this would be a Harden Embiid pick and roll, just one after another after another. I think you'll still see a lot of that depending on who they go with at center, but the idea with them is that they've just got enough space around whoever it is that they're using as a screener that they'll be able to make offense happen.
Yeah. I mean, they had a lot of balance in their offensive production in their overtime win against the Pacers on Wednesday. 4 of 5 of their starters in double figures. And in fact, 4 of 5 starters nearly scored 20-plus each. Harris and Melton each had 19, Maxey 17. Harden led the way with 26. They also got double-digit scoring from 3 guys off the bench, Niang, Trez Harrell, and Shake Milton. So, even when Embiid's not here, and maybe even more so when Embiid is not there, it's easier for this team to balance themselves offensively. And I was looking at their lineup splits. I was telling you earlier, Will, that I thought were interesting. So this season, the most used lineup for Philly is Embiid, Harden, Harris, Melton, Tucker. That 5-man combination has played nearly 200 minutes on the floor together this season, plus 11.7 per 100 possessions. Their second most frequently used lineup of Harden, Embiid, Harris, Maxey, Tucker, Maxey instead of Melton, plus 4.3 per 100 at 114 minutes. Their third most used lineup is the one where Embiid is sitting and Harden is on the floor. Harden, Harris, Maxey, Melton, Tucker, so a little bit of a smaller lineup, but they have a plus 13 rating per 100 possessions. So just because Embiid's off the floor tonight doesn't mean that the Bulls are going to have any easier of a task, offensively speaking.
And they've got, like we said, some really dynamic players. I forgot to mention Melton, who I think is a really nice player. But it's also I think a lot of those minutes are probably in situations where Embiid's on the bench, as we talked about. It's a little bit different when you go into a game knowing Embiid's not going to be there the whole time. So maybe that changes things, maybe not. But, yeah, when you've got a lineup with James Harden in it, they're going to have zero problems scoring the basketball.
So I see people in the comments laughing about how, Niang's going to go off tonight. Tobias Harris is going to go off tonight. Tyrese Maxey is going to go off tonight. I do think that the Bulls have played some spurts of very respectable defense recently, Will, in some of these wins. We saw polar opposites in that second game that they choked away against the Cavs. They were up big, playing great defense, held them to 47 first-half points, and then that defensive collapse, they gave up, 98 between the second half and overtime. But, if the Bulls are locked in and engaged defensively tonight, obviously no Caruso hurts, no Javante hurts. How do you think that the Bulls can try to slow down this Sixers team with all these weapons with their defensive aces not on the floor?
Well, we saw a pretty good example of that against the Nets.
Yeah.
Missing Alex Caruso for a lot of that game, I thought the execution of the pick-and-roll defense just looked a lot more seamless than it has. Ayo, I think, especially has been fantastic as the low man stepping over to help and just getting steals. The execution from guys like DeMar and Kobe White, who you wouldn't traditionally think of as high-level, defensive rotation guys, had a couple of nice steals. They're getting out in transition that way. And then, they were joking about it in the locker room. The other sort of thing the reporters were asking Patrick about was felt like you did a pretty good job on Kevin Durant. And Zach was like, yeah, well, he scored 44 points.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And we were like, well, it's better than 71.
It's better than 71.
So, but I do think Patrick definitely had moments. Derek Jones Jr., I thought at the backup 5 looked really good coming in after not really playing a ton of minutes in the games prior to that. I think it's just we have seen spurts, to your point, but it's about the consistency. I thought Vooch has done a pretty good job getting to the level of the screen recently. Patrick's been doing great getting over screens and staying attached to his man. So it's got to be top to bottom. The margin for error is so small, especially when you're missing Caruso, your best defensive player, Javonte, one of your best defensive players. You cannot make mistakes. The 76ers are going to force you into tough positions where helping could cause you to be, subjected to a ton of open threes. So it's going to be difficult, but they have shown the ability to do it. The Nets are another example of a team that just like really spaces you out. We saw Seth Curry get off a little bit in the second half, but they have, Joe Harris and guys like that. So they can do it. It's just about the consistency and executing throughout the course of 48 minutes.
Real quick before we get out of here, you mentioned Vooch when you were talking about, the Bulls pick and roll defense. Offensively speaking, it'll be interesting to see if Billy tries to get Vooch going early and often tonight. I just saw the Sixers starting lineup. Officially, they are running with the same five that they used against the Pacers Wednesday when Embiid was also sitting out. Tucker, Tobias Harris, Melton, Maxey, and Harden, which is a pretty small starting lineup. Do the Bulls try and take advantage of that? And what are you saying that you don't want Vooch? You want a Patrick Williams first bucket, Joseph?
Well, I'm just saying they should exploit. They should be attacking the rim early from the get-go, from the first possession.
But Patrick, not Vooch.
Make it a point.
But Patrick, not Vooch.
Well, if I had to pick one.
All right, it is 6:02 Chicago time. That means tip-off is right around the corner. We'll be right back here for postgame, and our guy Big Dave will be joining us. In the meantime, hit that thumbs up button. If you were watching along with us on YouTube, we appreciate it. And follow us on Twitter. He is Will_Gottlieb. Hashtag bring back won't Gottlieb. I am Bulls_Peck. Follow our producer and our friend Joey Spathis. He is at Joey Spathis. The climb to 1,000, folks.
Race to 1K, baby.
Yes. We need real people following each other on the Twitter machines. No bots. What is with these bots recently?
I don't know, man.
Out of control. Timeout, bots.
Come on, Elon.
Come on, Elon. All right.
I'll take your guys' bots.
Yeah, I've blocked like 30 bots in the last day and a half. It's crazy. Okay, we'll be back for postgame. Go Bulls. Get a W. See you, Red. Be good.